Alright, so what's been going on the ladder? Let's take a look at your profile.
Almost
been happening?
Masters 2, I'm getting there.
Okay, nice. About 4750. Today, looks like we had a big losing streak earlier today, but we've had a couple wins to just before. A couple wins before that as well. 6 losses is not the end of the world, but looking through before that, 3 days ago, it's a nice big win streak. Bunch of losses, bunch of wins, bunch of losses, bunch of wins. So just back and forth. Cool. Let's see how the race report's going. So
I haven't been playing as much ranked because I haven't had much time.
oh, you've been playing mostly unranked, or?
Yeah, for now, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that race report tells us nothing. It's like a couple of ZVPs and a couple of ZVTs, and that's about it. Okay, cool. Oh, MQ, thanks for the sub there. I appreciate that. So what shall we focus on? What do you want to look at? We looked at ZVT a couple of weeks ago. What's on the problem list?
I've got a few ZvZs you can look at. I've been seeing a lot of Muta lately. It's been giving me some trouble. Like I usually, if I, get wind of it, I guess, I'll try and make a timing push with roaches, and it can put me in a good spot, or obviously it can just lose me the game in general. But
okay, so we can talk about that. I'll make you the party leader. Let's open up a replay and take a look. That should be awesome. So yeah, get that replay up, and then we can talk about that. There we go.
And there's one thing also that I don't have a replay of it. I forgot to save it, but I promoted you to leader.
Oh, that's the party leader. Let's go, lobby leader.
Oh, whoops.
No worries, man. Lobby host.
There you go. There's a timing that I rarely see, but it kills me every time, is when they actually push with slow lings and banelings. Like, very early.
Like off a 13-12?
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. It's pretty brutal. I'm not sure how to deal with that.
Okay. I mean, yeah, it's kind of exactly the same as defending a 13-12, just the banelings come a little bit earlier. They have less zerglings and less ling speed, so they basically, like, as long as you don't clump your shit up and kind of get your queens nestled in nice little gaps, like, you should be able to keep enough stuff alive, but it's all micro-oriented. So is this that, or is this something else?
No, this is Muta play.
Okay. So do you have any replays of that kind of 13-12?
I wouldn't be able to. It'd take me forever to find it.
Okay. Slowlings, straight into Banes. So we can definitely talk about responses to that. So let's talk through your normal game plan here. So I remember we did do. Sorry, one sec. Getting the hotkeys going. I'll turn the sounds down as well for the people watching, so that I'm not shutting all that down. Okay, cool. So we're going hatch gas pool, and let's take a look here. So I think, yeah, we didn't get a chance to do any Zerg vs Zerg, did we?
Not yet, no.
Not yet. So ZvZ, previously, when kind of before we first even started coaching, you'd said, okay, you'd take your third around 30 supply, get a Baneling nest, Bling Bane battles until you fill 3 gases, 2 bases worth of minerals, and then you get +1 roaches. And even back when you wrote this, mutas were your biggest struggle. So, good. Okay. Yep. Okay. Okay, cool.
Your queen's ready to vomit larva.
So, let's talk about a couple things here. Okay, so first things first. Our opponent's build was quite weird, wasn't it? What was this opening? Was it just a 16, 17 pool? I think it might have been. Maybe not.
Yeah.
I mean, we definitely didn't need a spine against this. Let's take a look. Is it? Okay. Yeah, it's a 17 gas, 16 pool. Or 17 pool. Okay, cool. Okay, so our overlord goes straight across the map. And let's just check this out. Let's see, do we panic? Do we freak out? What ends up going on here? We're going to come in. We're going to see a few zerglings. So, here's a little tip. If you see those Zerglings coming out right at that moment, that's a pull first. Now, a simple way to think of that is if those Zerglings are kind of leaving their base just as your spawning pool's finishing and you're starting your lings, then that's just a pull first, right? Or if it's a 13, 12, your pool won't even be finished until they're at your base, basically, right?
Right.
So that's one thing which can kind of help you stay a little bit calmer and kind of not get too tilted or freaked out by it. Because I do feel like we were a little bit panicked by that. Now, if you see 6 slings, I would always build 6 to 8 Zerglings to respond, right? Because they might surround 2 of your lings as they're popping or something. And just make your life easy, build 8 lings, and then you can start droning even whilst you're dealing with it, right? So let's just take a look here at your build. Now, you've gone gas about 113. Spawning pool immediately goes down. Now, that spawning pool placement, I would much prefer one space to the south. And the reason for that is because your queen can't fit in that plug. So your queen can either jam it from the backside, but then she can't kind of move through it. So if she gets surrounded inside the mineral line by lings, she's going to still have a lot of surface area. And if banelings are running in, she can't run out through that gap and start sniping them ahead of time. Whereas if that spawning pool was one space down, your queen could pop from either side of the gap, could kind of plug or unplug itself on either side. Gives the queen a little bit more maneuverability, and also this will very slightly slow down your gas mining. Usually it's a little bit different on every map, so it's pretty minor, just a small little preference thing. But let's take a look at this. So your spawning pool's going to finish, right? You're going to be on like 20 supply probably. And then we're going to build Zerglings, I would imagine, here. So spawning pool's finished. Queen. Our Zerglings start up. Oh, the Zerglings coming. And then we're kind of like, oh god, okay, let's build a spine. Now, because that... Okay, we do start ling speed on time, which is nice. But yeah, we've only got 4 lings, and that spine's not really going to be ready in time to help us defend this. So you can see now there's this window where your 4 lings versus 6. That's a little bit frightening. Suddenly it's like, oh no, we're going to lose a drone. Oh, whereas I think your opponent could have maybe cancelled the spine crawler, maybe got a drone there. So it worked out okay, but definitely something where we don't really need that spine crawler as much. If you're worried about really fast ling speed afterwards, remember they can have ling speed about 3 minutes. Usually about 3 minutes 10 is the earliest, but in this case it's like 3:05. If you're worried about that, just go for the Baneling Nest before 3rd, which is exactly what you've done here anyway. But it wasn't the fastest Baneling Nest. Could have been earlier if we didn't go for that spine crawler.
Okay, fair enough.
Awesome. So yeah, so that's not a big deal. We're just kind of chilling here. Obviously, we do need to get our 3rd up. A few Banelings. You've got great Overlord positioning on your opponent's side of the map. Actually, your Overlord on the left is maybe could be up to the right 1 or 2 spaces. There's just like a narrow bit of fog on your opponent's ramp. It's not a big deal, usually won't matter, but if they're beelining from their natural to your natural, you can imagine those units are going to go exactly where those lings are now, and they're automatically going to path kind of in a line up through the center of the map, and you might not catch them until they're at your base, which is potentially very problematic. So, cool. Okay, so early game looks totally fine though. I'm just going to leave it on your camera, and let's talk through some theory before we even get to the Mutalisk problem. So you've mentioned, you know, kind of how you play and stuff, and you've said sometimes you'll do a roach timing if you get wind of the Mutalisks, and sometimes it puts you in a good spot. However, we haven't really listed any specifics. Are we talking about a hatchery tech roach timing, just mass like Roachling Bane? Are we talking with an upgrade, +1 and roach speed, and then droning a 3rd behind it? What sort of roach attack are we really thinking about doing? Say at this point, we already knew there was a 2nd gas and a lair on the way. Say we'd already seen that. We're like, oh, I think this is Mutalisks. Okay? Fast lair, 2nd gas off the back of Ling Bane. I think he's going Mutas. Yeah, what sort of attack do you think you'd go for?
If I knew that, it'd probably be before even +1 starts or something like that. If I knew that information.
Okay, so if we could catch wind of Mutaplay nice and early, we would hit a roach attack.
Like before layer or anything, yeah.
Nice and early. Okay, so what would we do? No lair, no +1 / Evo chamber, or we can cancel the Evo or whatever. So how many roaches off the top of your head?
Probably 8 to 10 maybe, and then more Banelings when I get across the map.
8 to 10 roaches and Massling Bane reinforce. And obviously kind of as we're launching the attack, You can still rally lings if you want to go completely all in, but normally, just as a standard thing, it's good to just drone behind. Because very often, if you build another 40 Zerglings and they've just got a few Banes around or whatever, it's like, well, this does nothing, right? But if we've got another 20 drones behind it, oh, cool. We killed a bunch of their drones. We're up 20 drones. Like, we're up 30 drones because we built 20 behind it. Fuck yeah, let's go. So drone behind the push is always good as a general rule. So that's awesome because that's nice and well defined. So that's a really good push, right? That's going to be pointed. It's like, okay, +1, layer of roach speed. Those things take too long to kick in. By the time we get those, opponents probably got mutas out, right? That's why we're skipping them. We're trying to hit hard and fast, taking advantage of the fact that they're investing in gas, lair. None of that's actually paid off yet. All they've got is Lingbane, Queen, and maybe a few spines. And hopefully if we push out all suddenly in one ball, even if they start spines straight away, we get there before the spines finish and are able to just bust in, right?
So to get that information, I just have to be more active with my lings, I imagine, right? Basically.
Yeah, I mean, definitely being active with your lings, but it's not guaranteed, right? They could hide it well. So because it's not guaranteed, well, let's think about that scenario. What if we don't get the information? What if we don't get the info and we're just on a standard path? So we're on a standard path. So, you know, you're droning up, you're getting +1, you've got some roaches out, you're droning your third. And then suddenly, you know, what do we see? Spire is 3/4 done. When we spot it. So I personally, like, do you think you still want to go for a roach speed +1 attack? Or do you want to go for a Nidus Worm? Or do you want to just defend, tech up, and try to play it out in a little bit later?
If I did notice a Spire that late, I would definitely probably play more defensive.
Cool. I agree, right? Because if you're going Nidus at that point, you're not going to have the queens built up to transfuse it necessarily, right? You're not going to... Maybe you're already at 55 drones or something, which is like, oh, well, do I really want to Nidus if I've already gone so high on economy? You know, so it's something where, because we don't have that clear early pointed attack that we're able to commit to, suddenly it's like, oh, okay. We can transition onwards. We can just macro up. So the thing is, what about macroing up? If we see a Spire 3/4 of the way done, we need to have a Muta reaction list, right? So we're doing a normal macro play. We know mutas are on the way. Let's list out all of those tiny details. So I'd love you to open up your document and just kind of start writing down under that Muta reaction list on page 1 of your document, your notes. So just ignore the replay. I'm going to keep watching it in the background. But I'd love you to write, just right there. Sorry. And just write down all the different things you kind of want to have, all the little details. And it should be very nice. And it's kind of cool because you'll often find, well, I often end up behind Roach vs Muta, and if we go through and write down every little detail of our response, we can start to fine tune and tailor that. Then we can also start to come up with some way of gauging, well, was I just too far behind against these mutas? Or what could I have done better? What could I have done, what did I really fuck up in this game, etc. And that makes a huge difference, getting that info.
I should about do it, I think, for the most part. And yeah, I think that would be my late game composition if he was stuck on his composition, I guess.
Cool. Well, so a few things. So let's go through it. This is a pretty good list, but let's focus on it a little bit more. So 2 spores at each base you've written. So in terms of spore positioning, 2 spores at each base can be okay. I often just go a single spore at each base and kind of rely on a few extra queens. And 1 or 2 connecting spores, right? I don't like there being a gap between my bases which the mutas can just fly into and have a party. So I like to have...
in this game.
Yeah, I like to have a spore like... you on everyone's camera? So you can see my my pings?
Yeah, I am now, sorry.
I'd put a spore like there probably, between the natural and third, and another one out here. Because I really like to have those areas where I can move my queens between my bases. And build a few extra queens as well, just for a little bit of defense. And the queens are good at defending roach follow-up attacks. Mutas into roach timing is a very common way to play. So having extra queens is just great against that. They're very good against Lingbane if they do the big mass Lingbane muta kind of rolling in, trying to get in your worker lines constantly. So that can be pretty sick as well, right? That can be awesome. So two spores at each base. So we can change that. We can go, okay, let's actually go 1 spore at each base. And plus connecting spores. And if you really want, like on certain maps, you can do kind of zoning spores, right? Or especially if you see heavy mutas, you can do, like on this map, we can go, if we put a spore right on the edge, they can't fly behind that, right? If we put a spore right on the edge up there, they can't fly behind it. So you create like a continuous kind of range of spore coverage. So there's no way for them to fly in the backside of your base. So a lot of players will actually never build a spore in their natural against mutas, because they've got a spore out front their natural, and out front their third, and that sort of thing. And they've got a few queens running around. So for the muta player to dive in with the mutas is very dangerous, and the muta player will very rarely risk it, right? And that's why it works out so nicely. That's why it can be really, really good there and really effective. So that's kind of interesting, is we can just go into these tiny, minute details of how can we get better with our spore placement and how many spores. Hydroden ASAP you've written down, drone full 3 bases, and add for a 4th. So something else I'd add here is this is not a bad muta reaction list by any means, but I actually don't think getting hydras is important at all, right? Because if we think about it, hydras aren't good till a little bit later when their upgrades are done. And the biggest thing that we know is going to happen is you're building spores, right? You're building spores. I think building a few extra queens is really solid. So we should kind of go, okay, let's build a few extra queens, throw them on our defense key. So we can go, okay, 2 to 3 extra queens. And then Hydroden does not need to be ASAP. And that's the big mistake, is you're building queens, you're building spores, and let's assume you lose a few drones and overlords to the mutas. That brings us up another point. Overlords. We got to pull back all our overlords, don't we?
Yeah.
So
that's something I don't do for sure.
Pull all overlords off the map and change rally points back to mineral lines, you know, or back to safety, right? So your overlords are nice and safe. Not just that, another little bonus point. Hide an overlord, overseer, or overlord, and then turn into overseer later, in the corner of the map. So say in this spawns, it would be top right or bottom left, and you can just keep dropping changelings from that muta, that overseer, and sending them into scout. And your opponent's never going to know where those changelings are coming from, so they can't stop it. And that's going to give you scouting, because you don't want to be completely in the dark, right? Sometimes you'll see the first 8 mutas, you're there, you're like, doop-de-doop, I'm going to build some infestors and hydras, and okay, cool, I've got 8 hydras out, I've got both upgrades on the way, I've got my first 3 infestors about to pop, I've got spores everywhere, a few extra queens. There's 30 roaches who've just run into my third and killed me. Oh, he never even droned his third base. He's only got a couple drones there. He's done a big roach timing. Why the fuck am I building infestors and hydras, right? That's only important if we want to push out of our base and go kill him. But if they've only invested in 6 or 7 mutas, swapped into mass roach, and they're doing a timing attack, we want to know about that. So that's where sending changelings in from this corner of the map, it's just this thing you can build into your play to make sure we know what's going on. Oh, he's going mass mutas, massling bane, he doesn't even have a roach warren, he's going up to hive, he's trying to get ultras. Okay, cool, and you can adjust to that, right? You can try to hit a timing before the ultras come out or something like that. So overseer in the corner of the map, really beautiful little thing. Now, drone full 3 bases on minerals is actually super key, because you spent so much minerals. Losing overlords, losing a few drones, build spores, which kills drones, building queens, tons of minerals. So we're actually delaying our gases. And you're probably only going to have 3 gases usually. Then add the rest of your gases once you're oversaturated. So it's important to get that full 3-base mineral economy going.
Just go kill them.
And then we want to try for a 4th. Now you wrote that, and that's awesome. But you know what? I'm going to make that a sub point. Creep to 4th base.
Okay.
And try for a 4th is the sub point. So getting the creep is something you always do towards that 4th. Oh, they're on mass muta. I really can't get spores over there just yet, or cover it. I'll hold off on it. Oh, you know what? I've got extra money. They don't have that many mutas. I've got the creep over there. Sweet. Just move a spore over to the 4th, put the hatchery down. But in this scenario, right, this is a terrible 4th. There's no way we can defend that. You've got minerals for it, so it's not the end of the world. I'm not saying this is like a bad decision. But we can see here, oh, our opponent managed to snipe off our creep. We didn't have the spores between our bases. He sniped off the creep, and suddenly we're also separated. And now we're in that position where we're kind of, okay, oh shit, you know, we don't have all the connection and all the little pieces going. We don't have as much scouting either, right? We're not really sure what the follow-up is. In this case, it is mass mutiling bane, where it's like, oh, we just need infestors and lurkers and spores and queens and whatnot, and just anything to survive. But it's cool because we start to just look at all the refinement of these little points. Now, if droning your 3 mineral lines is the most important thing, let's say you do no roach attack, right? So I'm going to talk benchmarking. Am I ahead or behind? So when you watch a replay, you need to have a good idea of that. So let's take a look at this game. This game, obviously, we're about to lose all those hydras and get blopped. Too many mutnuts.
I was ahead, I think. I mean, economy-wise, for sure.
So at this point of the game, do you think you're ahead or behind?
I'd say I'm ahead with my 3rd finished, partially droned. I have defense set up. So I do catch wind of a Muta switch.
Sorry, say what?
I do catch wind of a Muta switch, so I'm setting up defense in my 3rd. And I'm trying to at least do a little damage here. But I feel like I'm slightly ahead.
You see, it's really hard to judge, but something I like to look at here and look at these metrics in more detail, and I guess it's partially subjective, right? But it's important to look at the different metrics. So let's think economy. So your 3rd's finished. Your opponent's 3rd is also pretty much finished, right? And you've only got 2 drones there for now. Now you do have 4 more drones about to pop. So you're slightly ahead in economy, but very slightly. This is only a marginal thing, right? If your opponent builds a round of drones, they're not far behind you. However, if you put down spores, right? If those mutas are suddenly on your side of the map, and we had to put down spores right now, 6, 7 spore crawlers, so let's say 6 spores. That's a ton of minerals, a lot of drones going down. Suddenly you're basically behind on economy. So that's what we've got to factor into our kind of calculation here is pre-muta defense, we need to kind of have more drones because we're going to lose a lot of drones and slow down our mineral income a lot by building all the anti-air. On the other side, you got a shitload of roaches your opponent has to deal with, right? You're obviously ahead in the army right now, but on the other hand of that, he's ahead in tech. He's got mutas, you got nothing that deals with them. So it's this weird thing where you're ahead a little bit in economy, but you're not going to be for long because of his tech advantage. His tech means he's going to eliminate all of these roaches without losing any of his army. So you've got to try and do enough damage to his economy to make up for that. Hopefully you're droning enough behind this in the meantime that you can then get up enough. It's a complex calculation. However, I think one thing we can definitely look at here is saying, okay, we were committing to a +1 roach speed timing, but we really... You said you got wind of it being mutas, but I think, was that just because you saw your opponent was still on Ling Bane? Because I don't think you'd actually seen the Spire or the Lair at this point.
Yeah, it was because of his unit composition.
Okay, so you're like, oh, he still doesn't have roaches? He must be going mutas. So you kind of just sniffed it, right? We didn't have confirmation, but we sniffed it, which is what you want to do in ZvZ. We don't want to be like, oh, 100% scouting and all that sort of stuff. Thank you very much, Bubbly Germ. Appreciate the cheer, mate. Much love. Unreal. Appreciate that as well. Thank you, MCube. So I think in this scenario, it's not really the scenario we normally want to have happening, right? Oh, God, what did I press? Ah. Where we're doing a big roach attack at +1. This is not really our game plan. So this is, oh, we figured out what was happening too late. So I think in this replay, we can look at it and say, oh, maybe we should have scouted a bit better. Also, maybe as a general plan, if we want to be safer against this sort of stuff, maybe we shouldn't just be massing so many roaches by default. Maybe we should be doing a bit more of roaches plus drones, you know? In this case, our 3rd was very late, and you got thrown off your game plan by your opponent's opening. And you kind of changed up your order into this very late 3rd. So that kind of, I think, skewed things for you. But let's look at it and say, okay, this is not a normal scenario. Let's say we've got scouting a little bit earlier, right? At least before the Spire finishes. Let's go back to when that Spire, remember what scenario I was talking about? Spire 3/4 of the way done, right? 2/3 of the way done, something like that. So let's find that point in this replay. And let's imagine we'd scouted at that point. And if you'd made an Overseer right away now, when your lair finished, and sent it in, you would have had wind of it for sure. So we were just a little bit slow at doing that, but you kind of sniffed it out anyway. So let's imagine, okay, at this point we've seen it. You haven't committed to a crazy number of roaches just yet. Let's imagine we're not going to commit to a roach attack. The roach attack can pay off big, but it's inconsistent. So for our kind of theory crafting, we don't want to factor that in, right? There will be games where you scout it late or you get tricked and you've got to commit to the roach attack while droning hard behind it, right? And we can investigate that line later. But for now, let's imagine you've spotted it. So you want to be droning really, really hard immediately, right? We don't need to drop spores just yet. We don't need to drop spores until the mutas are popping out, right? So if you saw the Spire right now, you could say to yourself, oh, it's 5 minutes 50. I want to drop spores at like 6:15 or 6:20 or something like that, right? You could say, oh, I think that spire is about 30 seconds from finishing. Let's start spore crawlers in about 30 seconds. And you can even note down the game timer. And that's important, right? Because then we let our drones get a bit more mining time. We build a big round of drones onto this third base, and then we build the spores. But we've got the drones to kind of absorb that loss to our minerals, to absorb the fact that we're building a few extra queens and that sort of stuff. And from there, you can really kind of roll up and get into a really good position.
Okay.
So you want a drone advantage. You want to drone your third faster if you're Roach versus Muta. So your econ advantage will make up for your tech disadvantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Army, economy, tech, right? The big trifecta we want to kind of think about how that rotates. So let's imagine in this point, just kind of think about it. You're like, okay, bam, droning hard, pulling the overlords back. I don't need to build any more roaches. You're pulling all your overlords back. What else is in the list? Build a few extra queens. Hide an overseer off in the corner of the map. Maybe you'd grab this overlord on the map. You'd be like, "Hoi, you, get up to that corner of the map. Hide over there so the mutas won't find you." We might start spreading creep towards our fourth base, which you've already got, a bit of creep out there. We'd have those connecting spores, and we'd really just be droning up and defending with a few extra queens, handful of roaches, spores, and droning. And the important thing is to have this idea of this is part one of your defense, right? We're not rushing gas, we're not rushing hydras, we're not rushing lurkers or infestors or anything like that. We want to get that third base fully saturated as quickly as possible on minerals, then we can take the gas and at the same time sort of explode into the tech and all that sort of stuff. So that's going to be a nice way of making sure you're always building your economy very solidly, and you're really setting yourself up to then explode into the infestors or the hydras or the lurkers or whatever it may be. So in this case, we did end up having to commit to the roach attack. We tried to do as much damage as we could. What do you think you could have done better with this roach attack?
I don't know. The only thing I can think of is probably just either drone a little better, maybe micro the roaches a little better.
Let's just go through and think formulaically. I think you did a pretty good job. Like, you definitely didn't do a bad job with this. Like, you split up into multiple mineral lines because he was running the drones away. You did a really nice job. What's your priority, I guess, is more what I should be asking. So what's the highest value target that you're going to be going for when you're in their base?
Drones.
Okay, cool. So we're going to go drones first. And what's your secondary target?
I guess the spire? Or
You're under attack.
I think that's not...
Queens?
Yeah, if you think you can get the spire, I would 100% go for it. But it's like, if you can get it, right? Because it's a bigger cost. Same way, sometimes it's worth it to focus down a hatch. If they're like really quick at running their drones away ahead of time, maybe you're going for a third base, rather than this being like more of a 2-base versus 2-base sort of game. Sometimes it's worth clicking on the hatch, even though mineral cost for hit points, it's like the worst, right? Killing a hatchery, you're like, ugh. But if it's right next to you and you happen to have a ton of roaches, sometimes it is worth just volleying it down. But generally speaking, yeah, splitting into mineral lines, targeting drones, then spire. Queens are not bad, but they're definitely not the highest priority. So it's like drones, then potentially spire, then queens. And we can often just do that really nicely. But you did a good job to kind of get in an okay position. But notice how you're building hydras right now. So even with everything that's going on this game, and it was a bit of a weird opening that he did, and it made you take a slower third. Imagine if instead of those hydras, we had a few... Actually, you've got enough spores. They're just not in the right positions, right? Yeah, you've got like 9 spores. If you had spores connecting your bases, 2 or 3 extra queens about to pop out, you could grab these injecting queens, bring them all over to the front, plus your spores, and then you could kind of go, okay, let's finish taking the gases, and then build the hydras after you've built another 15 drones. He's not going to kill you in that time, right? If we were just building drones instead of these 7, 8, 9 hydras. And we want to get comfortable relying on spores and queens, and then you won't get in this scenario where suddenly these mutas are getting out of control and they're picking off hydras on their own and they're kind of finding bits of tech damage, and like at this point it's like, oh god, this is terrible, right? We want that continuous wave of spores, and by making sure we don't go into tech units, it's going to force you to focus on, okay, it's just spores and queens for the defense, drone the 3 bases up, protect the 3 bases. I mean, if we think about that, they could come in with Ling or even a few Baneling waddling in, right? So I always leave a few roaches on my main ramp, about 4 roaches, and another 4 or 5 roaches down at my third. Often I want to only stop at 9 or 10 roaches, right? Because I'm focusing on queens and spores to stop the Muta tech. But having a few roaches on the main ramp will stop Ling run-bys in there. A few roaches on the third will stop Banelings or Lings running in there. And the rest is just queens, spores, and you can zone out those Mutas and do it really nicely.
Complete.
Okay, and you kind of keep your queens in a central position?
Yeah, pretty much. And you can kind of just A-move them towards the direction wherever... Okay, the Mutas are going towards the main, the queens can kind of waddle their way up. And the good thing is then, even if you're like, oh god, he's building a lot more Mutas, he's suddenly got 14 Mutas, like this game, right? Even if he comes in to fight a spore, you're like, oh, transfuse, 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 and even if he kills it, he's going to lose a few Mutas. Obviously, you're instantly dropping extra spores if you realize they're doing that, building more queens, and just going, oh, mass queens, mass spores, add some roaches as well to make sure my opponent, you know, can't get on top of me. So that should be awesome. I think this is really good because we've just kind of, we've defined every little detail now of the anti-Muta response. And that's important because there's a lot of things to do there in a short period of time, right? And that's the crucial period, about 7...
I mean that in a good way.
It's like 5:45 in this game. About 5:30, 5:45 onwards from here, which I think you did realize it was Mutas because you saw he was still on Ling Bane, and you were like, oh. At this point onwards, it's like pull overlords back, change rally points, drop spores, drone harder, set up defense, get extra queens, add these queens to my defense key, get them to the front. There's a lot of shit, and it takes some practice to do all that quickly, and that's often the case with like defending fancy mobile kind of compositions, where there's a lot of things you need to do in quick succession, or they start finding damage, and then, oh, because they've opened a hole in your defenses, they can keep coming back in there and doing more damage and rotating around. And if you don't stabilize, you know, and they find that first opening, you lose a few of your queens or a few of your hydras. It's like a slippery slope and we start just kind of spiraling out of control. So let's hop out of that replay now. And I think that's awesome because we've got this like real comprehensive theoretical understanding of how to defend them now. And that's some good shit. Oh, we're on Skype, aren't we? We're not on Discord yet. My Discord was like, you've been in a call on your own for 5 minutes. That's weird. There's no one talking to you. I was trying to let me know. Cool. Okay, so shall we get some ZvZ practice against some opponents? Shall I try to pull up a partner for you or find someone? Or do you want to kind of just focus on other matchups?
Let's see.
Ooh.
I did have another replay we could go over real quick. Find it.
Okay, cool. Let me make you the leader. Triple Helix, you're about the correct rank. Do you want to hop on NA and play some games? So I think you're about Masters 3, right? Removed ban? I'm pretty sure that's a bot, dude. Is that not a bot? Did I just ban someone who was actually a legit chatter? If someone says, what the fuck, and has a dodgy picture link, I don't know, it hasn't said anything else in chat. I'm pretty sure that's a bot, dude.
Actually, I guess we'll just practice some ZvZ if you can find someone.
That was definitely a virus bot. It's been rebanned. Cool. Triple Helix or anyone else? Masters 3 Zerg. Anyone around that rank? Let's go. Let's go. Let's do it. And this is something where oh, he's already here. Fantastic. All right, I'm suggesting him to party, so you can host up. Choose your map. And yeah, it should be good. Just giving Helix some instructions. Awesome. Just make me a referee, so if I need to pause I can, in case I need to kind of training exercise it and say, let's remember to do this. So before we start, while I'm just giving him some more instructions, we're going to do your normal play, right? Normal play, normal setup. And if we scout it really early, we can do Roach Bane. But you know what? We're learning a new response here. Doing a Roach Bane's not hard. That's easy. Even if you scout there's mutas coming early, let's not do that, okay? Let's focus on just practicing the one response, which is the macro versus mutas. And we'll go from there, okay? So let's try to do it this way, where it's like, okay, just macro versus mutas. Now, you also said you go lurkers. As a training exercise, it might be better to just play like Roach, Hydra, Infester and just always do a push with like, you know, 4 or 5 Infestors, enough Hydras to beat the mutas and a lot of Roaches. Just because that's like a very crisp timing we can always hit. If you want to go lurkers, it's up to you. I honestly, who gives a shit? It doesn't matter. Which one do you prefer? Just kind of getting the lurkers and the Infestors and having the fully fleshed tech and playing a slower game? Or do you want to hit a tight Roach, Hydra, Infester timing after defending the mutas?
Probably try and hit a tighter timing if I could.
Cool. It's hard to break them if they've got lurkers out, of course, but you can still kind of posture around. If you can find an angle where the lurkers aren't set up, you can fungal them and focus them down and stuff when they're trying to burrow. So it works out very nicely. And it normally takes your opponent off mutas get a very long time before they get those lurkers. Okie doke. Awesome. All right. So just remember to focus on the response. Once we happen to see its mutas, we're just going to drone hard, pull our overlords back, drop spore crawlers. We're going to have that kind of just one spore crawler in each mineral line and then one connecting each base to start off. If we see mass muta, we can add more spores from that. And it should be awesome. Whenever you're ready, let's do it. Helix is good to go. Good luck. Have fun. So lots of little details. What are we really doing? We're playing a normal Zerg versus Zerg, and we're remembering to play defensively with lots of drones, a couple spore crawlers, and queens if it's up against Mutalisks. So good luck, have fun. Let's kick some ass. Can you hear me? You can't hear me. I managed to mute the correct program. I remember when I first started using Discord, but I still coach some people on Skype. Jesus Christ, it was the worst. I'd always be like, I'd mute Discord even though we were talking on Skype, and I'd be like, wow, he's doing this really shit, guys. I've really got to write some notes here to make sure he doesn't do this shit stuff anymore. And they'd be like, I can hear you, after like 3 minutes of me just fucking shitting on their play for the benefit of chat. I'm like, you're doing this thing wrong. Or sometimes they wouldn't even tell me. We'd play like 3 games in a row with me constantly in the back seat, verbally saying what they're doing wrong, and they like would never call me on it. And I was like, dude, that's the most distracting thing in the world. I'm a horrible coach. Ah. And they were like, no, it's okay. And I was like, you're too nice, man. Why is chat being auto-corrected after being sent? Maybe it was getting grabbed by auto mod? I don't know. It shouldn't be auto-corrected, but it does get auto-modded sometimes. Erebus, thanks for hanging out, dude. You too, man. Christmas was good. I ate a lot of food. I have so much chocolate. Oh, do you guys know what trifle is? My older brother always goes crazy for trifle. I enjoy trifle. But yeah, I've eaten far too much trifle. It's basically just like sponge, like nice sponge cake, kind of like a Madeira cake or something, not like shitty sponge. And it's soaked in like sherry, like sweet wine, and it's just in like jelly and custard and fruit and whipped cream, and is like the most over-the-top, deliciously disgusting thing ever. And I've eaten too much of it, and I have some in my fridge that I'm gonna eat after this stream, like the sick degenerate that I am. I am excited. Your dad made it one Christmas, Julian Storrell, so fattening. Oh yeah, it's great. It's so ridiculously awesome. We might do Florencio files probably not today, because we just did Icy Farm. Maybe tomorrow we'll do some more Florencio files. There's a bunch that still haven't gone up on YouTube because I've been kind of reorganizing how I do YouTube, guys. Helix, Dr. Helix is actually helping me as my my YouTube manager, thankfully, which is going to be great. Going to make things a bit more streamlined for myself so I can focus a bit more on the stream, because we actually had some incredible streams last week. And it was purely because I'm trying to just put more and more focus on talking while I play, whilst also doing a little bit of thinking about my builds, adjusting to the meta, and just kind of really staying in tune with StarCraft. It's a game where the more effort you put in, the more you get out of it. So as someone who wants to be entertaining and somewhat chill while I'm playing, putting a bit more thought into it just when I'm out of the stream and into my builds, and occasionally sitting down to just write up my builds and practice them, it just makes the stream so much smoother for me. So it's really nice. No, all the pro gamers can easily be GM with all 3 races, Synergist. Yeah, all the pro gamers can. Non-pro gamers, not too many can get GM with all 3 races. It does take a bit of effort. Most high GMs can, with limited practice, they can get there, especially if they play cheesy. But yeah, it's good shit. Are you gaining War Chest XP from watching this, says Oracle? I don't know if it works on the Twitch app. I know it works on desktop. Hopefully people in chat can let you know. I do have it all enabled. Make sure, of course, your account's linked and you have it all permission set up and all that sort of jazz, and hopefully it will work. It's rare to see a streamer do it. Yeah, most streamers do stick to their main race. I know like Winter has hit GM as each race at various points, or as random at least. I don't know if he's done it individually as each. But yeah, I'm always very comfortably maintaining it. Though my Terran sometimes, my macro Terran sometimes dips. My cheese Terran is always like easily top 100 GM. But my macro Terran struggles to stay quite as high. It's like really up and down. Like whenever I hit a good point in the meta where my builds are working, my macro Terran's like, whoo, 5,700, and I'm like, I'm feeling good, my Terran's good. And then like everyone like learns how to shut down those builds, and all my little mechanical mistakes get punished twice as hard, and I'm like, fuck, my Terran's bad, fuck. it's kind of hilarious. Yeah, people are like, why is your Terran so low? And I'm like, my random's still 6k MMR, guys. Like, there's a reason why my random's still up there. It's not like my Terran plays at like 5,200 MMR on my random. It's like, no, when I play aggressive / cheesy, my Terran still carries its own weight. It's obviously not as strong as my Zerg, but I often have a higher win rate than my Protoss cheese with my Terran cheese. So maybe Terran's just actually the cheese race. We never knew it. So there's no Banelings at home. There's only 6 Zerglings on the map. This is absolute fucking insanity from Scrubby. No safety Banelings whatsoever. He's finally building 2 more and has rallied them to that ramp. Should rally to that ramp. Having no Banelings at home, absolute fucking madman. He's getting away with it. But very, very greedy. Very greedy, guys. No safety banes. Just remember to make roach speed, also send an overseer in. Good job. Always linking those activities up when the lair's done. Good shit, good shit. So little defense. Oh my god. It's like fucking nothing here, man. If those Banelings go down, oof, shit could get nasty. The Banelings are gonna kill all these drones. Took so long to pull the roaches up to defend. Come on, man. Taking a real long time to defend. I mean, I really want to shout at him to build spores and creep spread and actually get all the defense up, but I don't want to distract those Banelings. Like, this is such a nice move, that's great. Come on, get those spores between the bases, connect your bases with creep, and pull all those overlords back. Let's not distract ourselves. As great as those Banelings were, you've got to connect your bases and you got to get spores between your bases. So yeah, get one between your main and natural. If you want, you can get another one in front of your third. Not really necessary. And you can split your roaches up, so some are on the natural, some are on the third. And remember, you're just droning a little bit more here. And now that you've got 3 bases saturated, you can start going into the anti-air. So the Hydra Den, the Infestation, we still don't have a spore in that main base.
Your forces are under attack.
3 queens plus having some spores, like suddenly it's like so much more dangerous for the mutas. Still hasn't put roaches on the natural, which is bad. And you do want to creep towards your 4th and try to get an extra spore crawler or 2 to kind of walk over there. In the meanwhile, build lots of overlords ahead of time and build plenty of roaches as well. Don't be afraid to just spend your money here as long as you're saturated. It's always good to oversaturate, like your natural's a little bit low on workers. But definitely just trying to get up the infestation pit as well. And we're going to go for that roach hydra infester. This is so much less damage than you're used to taking, so don't stress over it.
Your forces are under attack.
You didn't need to pull those roaches. That's a really bad move. Banelings could roll in at any moment and he could lose his entire mineral line. No need to pull his units
Mineral
back.
field depleted.
So you should normally actually go for infestors usually as fast as possible because they need time to gather energy. Build about 5 overlords. Don't build any more queens after these ones because queens don't really help us aggressively. They're just a stopgap to keep us alive defensively. Let's get pathogen glands and get that 4th base up. Remember, spread creep towards the 4th. Get a spore crawler or 2 over there and you'll be in a really good spot.
You're under attack. Just go kill them.
Yeah, he should have just stuck to the queen defense here. He did not need to build these hydras just yet.
Ready to creep. Evolution complete.
So you're going to get about 5 infestors, and then the rest is just like about 15 hydras or so behind that, sometimes 20. And then it's just non-stop roaches to finish your supply from that, and that'll work out really nicely. So those infestors should normally always be control grouped on a different key to your main army. And yeah, the rest of it just all on one control group will do just fine. So try to get creep and spores to your 4th, otherwise it'll get sniped over and over again. So this is something you want to kind of methodically set up. Watch out for those lings.
Your creep tumor is under attack. The world just became a little less purple.
Those queens buy a lot of time. Yeah, the hydras don't achieve anything. Queens and spores and creep spread is what actually wins you games. Having infestors out would have been nice, but also we're kind of learning that, hey, we should have had unit spread. So this is something where we can kind of look at this and say, wait, why don't we have just units on a no hotkey spread off on their own? Finally, we have a drop defense key. He's done it. Awesome, 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 awesome. So those fungals weren't terrible, but they also weren't great because he didn't have enough firepower to finish the units off.
Your queen's ready to...
Now when your opponent shows this style of play, what you want to do is you want to keep your units spread on your bases. You had like a roach defense key. You want to keep those spread out as much as possible. Yep, try and cover these bases as best you can. And you just want to keep rebuilding spores and creep. Remember, your opponent's going super inefficient in the long term. So if you can just keep rebuilding infestors, spores, hydras, you will be able to stabilize. And you can take a lot of punches. It can feel really bad as long as you keep your units spread so you don't lose all your worker lines. You keep just trying to rebuild here. You can weather the storm. It's not until ultras that your opponent will actually be able to wipe you out. And often they'll never even tech there. Usually they're just going to mass mutiling Bane. So you just want to keep rebuilding infestors, spores, queens, respreading creep, and doing your best to just hang on. Infestors landing fungal is also the most efficient thing, so the more infestors we get, the better.
The world just became a little less purple.
So this is a very specific scenario, which is mass mutiling Bane. So verse mass, so we can work more on the initial reaction. The bigger thing is working on our setup versus mass mutiling Bane. So what are the key things, guys? Reaction list. Mass mutiling Bane.
Oh, no,
YOLO style. What do we need, guys? More spores spread out so Banes don't splash multiple at once. Roaches and hydras pre-spread. More queens.
Mineral field depleted.
And keep replacing creep to 4th base. So the big problem that Scrubby's having here is just kind of A-moving everything as a group. all those Hydras are going to get wrecked.
Yep.
Punish the enemy attacking
You look at the
your
units lost, guys, you can see that
base. Mineral field. You're under attack.
despite taking so many really bad engagements, there's only down about 2,000 resources lost. Whereas often you'll actually be way ahead on the resources lost and still losing. Notice how Triple Helix supply is still not that much better.
Being attacked. Don't forget to macro.
Oof. Just never got these spores back up here,
A
which
mineral
was a
patch
huge,
just went
huge mistake,
kaput.
huge problem. So keep replacing creep to fourth
Attacking
base
your base. Start freaking
and
out.
working towards it. But cement your position
Your
on
base is
3
under
base before actually placing the 4th hatch.
You're under attack.
Keep infestors back
Base is under attack.
and focus on landing nice fungals for efficiency. So obviously this is not going well, guys, but it's still good practice.
Forces are under attack.
Did he just detonate all of his banelings? Don't know why he's saying whoops.
Your mutation is finished. And I mean that in a good way.
Could he go Mutas of his own instead of going Hydras? It's a very cheeky way of playing, which relies on you mining a lot more gas than your opponent, and them not, and then you hiding your tech, and then suddenly swapping into a ton of Mutas at once and getting the air advantage. Infamous Anthony, thanks for the Twitch Prime sub. Much love.
Workers to a new
Hey, Lux, you just bought a War Chest bundle using my link. Thank you so much, Lux. Really appreciate you using my War Chest affiliate link for that. Thank you so much, mate. Really appreciate that support. But check out how close the supplies are despite the shit show of a game that this is, guys. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Your queen's ready to
But
vomit larvae.
rather than keep producing the 4th, it should be creep and spores out here is actually the important thing, right?
Evolution complete.
Remember to keep, yeah, replacing spores and creep spread. And that's actually the key here is if you can keep replacing the creep and the spores, that's more important. So that 4th is not the most important thing to hold on to right now. And let's not use those fungals until we're ready to actually kill those units.
Have space to grow.
But let's just try to spread the creep over there and keep building lots of spores on your bases. Keep your units pre-spread everywhere. And we kind of want to play it like a Terran where we don't want to clump our stuff up when the fighting starts. We kind of just want to let our units do their thing. Because the moment we 1A our group up, banelings become really dangerous, right?
Ready to creep.
So just keep building a few more spores out front our hatchery and our base. And let's work our way towards that 4th base.
Queen
And see if we can do that. Now, obviously, at this point, it's been delayed so many times, it might not be enough, but let's focus on it because it's a good thing to practice, is this idea of if our opponent's massing Mutas, if we just very gradually walk our way over to that 4th base, establish it, we can do really well.
You're under attack. Your base is under attack. Your creep tumor is under attack. The world just became a little less purple.
So it's looking like he's probably got a little bit too much at this point, and we've only got 5 infestors. Let's try and do a push. So let's go across the map, one big desperation push, just rally Hydras, and let's just go push straight through towards the natural and then the main of your opponent. You got to go for a killing blow. So one last desperate all in. You know when you kill a Terran's economy 10 times, and then sometimes they just kill you because their army's so huge? Yeah, we're that Terran right now. Our army's way better. Let's try and just land fungals and shit, and good luck, have fun. Let's see if we can push straight into that main. So why the main, guys? Main because that's where the tech is. Yeah, so if you can get the Great Aspire and everything, that's going to be awesome. So problem right now is these roaches haven't had their rally point changed, whereas if their rally point was changed to the ramp, could have hung on. But now, because these units that are building at home are not rallying to the ramp, Scrubby is going to get surrounded and killed by this small link counter attack. Should be trying to move into that ramp. Just trying desperately to hang on. Might be able to not lose the base trade. But no, the units are still rallied out front. Oh, if those roaches just turned around, it would be good. It might be F2ing a bit. Or is hotkeying eggs or something like that. Oh, yeah, these roaches are getting hotkeyed to the army. Those roaches were hotkeyed to the army. Should obviously stop hotkeying your army at that point. What's crazy is how many punches we took, which we could have defended, and yet we're still managing to force a base trade at the end rather than just getting annihilated. Shows that Triple Helix's style is very mobile, seems very bullshit and powerful, but it lacks having the core army strength, which a more ground-focused style will have. So,
I don't mean to interrupt, but you're under attack!
Eat that fungal, bitch. Yeah. Obviously, we can't win the base trade, and we will lose in a sec, but always good to get a few fungals there. And overall, some really nice practice that we got in this game. So, good shit, my man. And Helix here was brutal with all the run-bys. Brutal. How are we still alive? Oh, nice. Get on the extractor. Ooh.
Yeah, if I,
but yeah, we could
get better at controlling the separately on these trades. I think we have a chance.
Yeah.
Being more active, but focusing.
We can tap out whenever you're ready. It's obviously not going to win this game. Awesome. So what's really fascinating here is the fact that you still managed to make a base trade.
Right.
It's just that style is one of the most, all upgraded Ling styles are the most bullshit, unfair thing. Like you know like Terrans and Protoss like, Ling's are fucking bullshit or something, and it's like it's because of that ability to just roll in from all sides. While usually that Zerg, the one playing Helix's position there, has nothing at home, right? They're just like, they're relying purely on their mobility. Everything's on the offense. They're rolling Banelings in from all sides. It's gross. It's brutal. It's brutal. So GG, well played. Obviously, you just need practice with the defensive setup as well. Just remembering to get like all the spores at once. Like, so rather than just going, oh, build the spore, try to like do all the spores at once. Right? It's like drone, drone, drone. Okay, I think the mutas are almost popping. Spore, 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 spore. Get that whole setup going. Get a creep tumor going to the 4th. Pull all the overlords back. Send an overseer to the corner so we can scout later on. Build a few extra queens. Set up our roaches ahead of time. Some defending the natural, some defending the 3rd. That's just for the standard Lings, but once you see, oh, he's at like over 12 mutas. Oh, okay, we know what style. He's probably playing that heavy Mutaling Bane style. So then we're really leaving lots of units at our 3rd, some units at our 4th as we start to like build a few spores around that 4th. And it's not important to put the 4th hatch down, really, until a little bit later. Like, especially if you know they're going heavy on the mutas, you're like, oh, let's just set up a defensive position there. And if they want to come in and drain those spores down and fight them with their mutas, they're going to lose a bunch of mutas. Queens they're transfusing and shit. Like, this is going to go okay for me. And it can just work out really nicely with a good little bit of practice. So that style, you were close to coming back at a few moments. And remembering to leave the... I love that I was about to unmute and be like, oh, make sure you split some units up as a defense squad. And you actually did that. But then at one point we kind of just got a bit panicked when some Banelings were running in. We pulled them back away from our 3rd, and then he got more damage done because of that. So yeah, trying to just remember to like leave those units kind of spread out in front of the 3rd, the natural, and build extra spores. That's the one thing I often skimp on in that scenario, and I try to train myself to remember more, is like, just build extra spores. Make sure they're not clumped up because Banelings can kill them all. But you just kind of like, oh, out front my natural and 3rd, that's the main combat area. Let's have like 5 spore crawlers just spread out there. You ever play it from the mass mutiling Bane side and your opponent just has extra spores and extra queens and roaches hanging around? You're like, shit, I can't trade into this efficiently at all. So it's like, it's actually just the roaches, the queens, and the spores that defend and keep you alive. The infestors and the infestors add crazy efficiency, and obviously they regen if you keep them alive each fight, so you get further and further ahead with infestors. And the hydras are the icing on top of the cake that allow you to push across the map and actually get mobile. So just keep in mind, if you want tech units, we do want to go infestors first, but up until then it's more just like, oh, he's massing mutas, more spores, more queens, more creep spread, and you will actually be able to stabilize and get on top of it. It's such a weird scenario, because if they get the first opening, you suddenly have to do 3 times as much to stabilize, and it's like the slippery slope we talked about earlier. With that game, I'm watching it, and you were doing a good job, because it's so hard. I've been there before. You're just trying to hang on. There's Banelings rolling into your 3rd, the Banelings in your natural, the mutas go and kill your connecting spore in the main, and you're like, oh, it's so stressful. So good on you hanging on as well as you did, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I can... that's a solid way to go about it. Just setting up the spores and whatnot. Just kind of turtling a little bit, I guess, until... I don't know, would you say I'd push when I hit max? Or
Yeah, sometimes even a little before max. But it's kind of like, yeah, making sure those infestors. And if you come out early enough, say you go 5 infestors, that's the magic number, right? Just so it's consistent. You just choose a number which you like. And if you get those out early enough, and then you're kind of securing the 4th, and you're adding the hydras, and you're not necessarily droning that 4th much, right? We're just trying to secure it. So it's like, hey, look, I've actually got the economy as well. I can play a longer game, and it makes it look less like an all-in from you. But if you get them out early enough, they can hit 150 energy. So then you've got double fungal. So it's like the difference between having 5 fungals or 10 fungals when the fight comes is huge, right? It's massive. So if you can get those infestors out early enough, and you're like, cool, okay, I'm at 140 energy on my infestors. Let's start pushing. I feel like I've got enough hydras combined with the fungal to deal with the mutas. Let's reinforce a ton of roaches, because obviously we just want enough stuff on the ground. And yeah, I think usually a little bit before max, because just in general, when people are like, oh, push when max, they kind of often, we get in that habit of waiting until we're at 200 and then pushing out, whereas that's kind of giving up any advantage you have. Like, you know, if you're at 160, they're at 140. If we wait till 200 supply, by the time we get to their base, they're often at 200 as well. So it's just one of those things where urgency is always good. If we feel we've got all the pieces we need to push into the Mutiling Bane, then that's always going to be really nice.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome, man. So good luck with your practice. If Helix is down, play a few more games. I'll make... You are still the party leader, so you can see if he's up. But that was an awesome sesh. So hit me up whenever you want to set up another one, and it should be good.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Have a good night, mate.
You too.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
You as well.
See you, man.